What is up, everyone? Player One Gaming here. Today I'm going to be making a prediction video for all 41 college football bowl games, starting with the Makers Wanted Bahamas Bowl between Buffalo and Charlotte, all the way through to the playoffs. So, yeah, I'll see. Some of these games I'm going to just go right through, just give a prediction and say who I think is going to win because I just don't know enough about these teams. Some of them I might go into a little bit more. Um, and I'm filming this on December 14th. So before any of the games actually start, the first game is on December 20th. So that would be next Friday when I'm recording this. So the first game is the Makers Wanted Bahamas Bowl between Buffalo and Charlotte. I'm going to go with Buffalo in this one. In the Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl, okay, Utah State and Kent State. Utah State, I think they've been pretty good the last couple of years. They've had a down year. Last year they were talked about quite a bit. They were ranked, I believe. And Kent State, never really that good. I don't think they've ever been ranked. I've got Utah State in this one. And after that, on December 21st in the New Mexico Bowl, Central Michigan versus San Diego State in the New Mexico Bowl. I've got San Diego State winning this one. Is it San Diego State? Yes, it is. In the FBS Mortgage Cure Bowl, Liberty and Georgia Southern. Liberty, I believe Liberty had a bad loss to Rutgers early in the year. Other than that, I really don't know how they've done this year. I'm a Big Ten guy, so I don't know anything about Liberty besides the fact that they lost to the Big Ten's probably worst team. So just on that, I'm going to go with Georgia Southern. In the Sharabundi Boca Raton Bowl, SMU will face FAU, and in this one, I'm going to go with SMU. In the Camellia Bowl, we've got Florida International versus Arkansas State. In this one, I really don't know much about these teams. FIU, I know they played. Actually, I don't know anything about FIU. Arkansas State, I know, will play Michigan next year in football. That's all I know. I'm going to go with Arkansas State because they're the favored ones here. Boise State and Washington. Washington's actually favored to win this game. The matchup predictor actually gives them the win, despite the fact that they were 7-5 and unranked. And Boise State is 12-1 and 19th. I think it should really mean something though when Boise State is 12-1, but they're only 19. Their schedule must not be very good. So in the winner in the Mitsubishi Motors Las Vegas Bowl, I've got Washington winning. In the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl, Appalachian State, who's 20th ranked, finished 12-1. We'd be going up against the 9-4 UAB. And Appalachian State, they're going to win by a lot here. This will probably one of those bowl games where one team will win by 20 or more points. So I've got Appalachian State here. On December 23rd, the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl, UCF versus Marshall. I've got UCF winning here. On New Year's Eve, we got the SoFi Hawaii Bowl. And despite the fact that Hawaii is in the Hawaii Bowl, I got BYU winning here. In the Walk-Ons Independence Bowl, Miami versus LA Tech. I'm gonna go with Miami. In the Quick Lane Bowl, Pittsburgh versus Eastern Michigan, I've got Pittsburgh. In the New Era Pinstripe Bowl on December 27th, Michigan State will be taking on Wake Forest. Wake Forest has been having a better year, I would say. They've, usually better than they were. I believe they were ranked earlier in the year a few times. So they have been in, they only have 4 losses this year. Michigan State, on the other hand, this is another down year. Last year, this year they've done even worse. If you want to talk about regular season, they went 7-5 last year. They went 6-6 this year. They have a chance to go 7-6 again against Wake Forest. For some reason, I don't think Michigan State can win this one. I think they're going to lose here to Wake Forest. In the San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl. Could these names be any longer? We got USC, number 22, going up against number 16, Iowa. USC is a slight favorite in this one, actually. I'm surprised, honestly. Uh, what are their notable games? I can't really think of anything for USC other than the Notre Dame game they had, where they only lost by 3, I believe. And Iowa, I know they played Michigan, and they beat Michigan, or they lost to Michigan, I should say. They beat Minnesota. So there's I guess a good win. I don't know who to go with, honestly, in this one. But because I'm a Big Ten homer, I'm gonna give the win to Iowa. North Carolina and Temple in the Military Bowl. I've got. I really don't know anything about either one of these teams. I know Temple got a very close win against Maryland earlier in the year. Other than that, I don't know anything else about either one of these teams. And that was during a time where we thought Maryland was going to be at least decent. And we were like, well, maybe Temple's really good. No, Maryland's terrible, and Temple is 8-4. But who have they really played? I know North Carolina probably needs this win, so I'm going to give them the win. In the Academy Sports plus Outdoors Texas Bowl, it's just weird names. Oklahoma State will be taking on Texas A&M. Now, Oklahoma State is ranked 25th. Texas A&M is unranked, both, and has a worse record than Oklahoma State. I'm not trying to put down Oklahoma State by any means right now, but I think Texas A&M is the better team. Yes, they're 7-5. I get it, but who are those 5 losses to? They lost to Clemson, they lost to Alabama, they lost to Georgia, they lost to Auburn, and they lost to LSU. Did I say LSU? Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Auburn, and Clemson. Those are all very good teams. So, I don't think anybody should be saying that Texas A&M was overrated going into this game. They just suffered a very hard schedule. And everything else they played, they won by quite a bit. Not everything, but they won all their other games. I think they're better than what their record shows. I think they're better than what the fact that they're not ranked. Maybe, yes, they don't deserve to be ranked because they have lost 5 games, but you got to think about the fact that, when they played Alabama and Clemson, they were both number 1 at the time. Auburn, who's number 8 now, I believe they are. Alabama, they're 13th, I believe. 13th, 12th. LSU, number 1. Auburn, number 8. Clemson's number 2, I believe. No, they're 3. Clemson's 3. And Georgia, who did lose to LSU, but Georgia, I think, is still a top 15 team. So all their losses were to top 15 teams, or at least really good teams. And, Oklahoma State, I'm not sure what their prominent wins are, but I got Texas A&M here. In the Cheez-It Bowl, Air Force will be taking on Washington State. And I've got Washington State winning here. All right, now we're getting into some really interesting games. On December 28th, which is a day with a lot of good games, the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Number 17, Memphis, who went 12-1 this year. I believe their only loss was to Temple, I think. And the 10-2, number 10th ranked Penn State Nittany Lions. Their only two losses were to Minnesota and Ohio State. Um, so, not bad losses by any means. Again, I'm not gonna say this for every game the Big Ten is in. I'm not just gonna go with Penn State because they're in the Big Ten, but I still do think that they're going to win this game, just because I do believe I think that they are the better team. They are ranked higher. Um, you know, yeah, I think it could be close. I think Penn State will probably struggle early for some reason, but then they'll run away with it in the end and win by 7, 10 points, something like that, and win this game. They're a heavy favorite here, at least with the matchup predictor. And I just believe that Penn State is the better team, and they're the only team to make it close, really, besides Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship, to make it somewhat interesting with Ohio State. So I do believe they are the better team just based off of that, and the fact that Memphis probably wouldn't have a chance against Ohio State. I mean, they wouldn't. Let's just be honest. Penn State didn't stand a chance, but at least they made it somewhat interesting. And Penn State is a team that's going to be reckoned with, I believe, next year. They're going to be a very good team, especially considering this year I didn't expect them to be as good as they ended up being. And next year they should be even better. So we'll see where they're at next year. But I got Penn State winning here. In the Camping World Bowl on the same day, at the same time as the Penn State-Memphis game, number 15 Notre Dame, 15th ranked 10-2, is going into this game against Iowa State, an unranked Iowa State who is 7-5. Notre Dame's a heavy favorite, and when you look at it, it should just seem obvious who's going to win this game. But I still have Notre Dame winning this one. I got Notre Dame winning this game, but I feel like people are taking Iowa State for granted. I mean, they're a pretty decent team, and they've had some close losses to some good teams. So I think that is a really good big reason why Notre Dame's in this game, and I think that this game is actually good for Notre Dame, because people complain they deserve a better game. They deserve to play a higher ranked opponent, or a ranked opponent at least. Here's the thing. If they were to play a higher ranked opponent in maybe the top 15 or whatever, do you realize that they would get destroyed? Are you aware of that? I mean, let's be honest. Michigan is 14th, 13th, and when they played, Michigan won 45-14. If you put Notre Dame against any team in the top 15, they're not winning. I promise you they're not winning. You put them against a Michigan again, the same thing will happen. If you put them against a Penn State or an Alabama or an Auburn or what other teams are highly ranked? Any it doesn't even have to be in the top 10. Just 11 through 14 would win this game against Notre Dame. Notre Dame, in the only 2 games that they played where they were actually ranked, or I'm sorry, they played 3 ranked teams, I believe, but one of them was Navy, and that was their only win. The other 2, Georgia and Michigan, you lost. And what other prominent wins did you have? None. You almost lost to Virginia Tech, an unranked Virginia Tech, and you had some close games against teams you shouldn't have had it close with. You should have won most of your games by more than what you did. Notre Dame is one of those teams where they are overrated, and if they were to be put in a game, I see these Notre Dame fans complaining. If they were put into, they want to be put in a higher caliber game against, in a New Year's Six. but they don't understand that they would get just their butt beat. They'd get the floor mopped with them. I mean, it would be a bloodbath. It would be a killing. It would be a murder. Um, you can't do that to you know they're not going to do that to Notre Dame. They're going to give them the easier game. Not that Iowa State isn't good. They are pretty good for what they are. They made it interesting with Iowa earlier in the year. They only lost by one, I believe. So don't take Iowa State for granted. They're a lot better than what people think, and they just don't pay attention. I still don't think Notre Dame's going to lose this game, but I definitely don't think that they're going to destroy Iowa State. It'll be a maybe 7-6 point win. I got Notre Dame winning. I will come back to the playoff games after I get through all the rest of these games. But in the Red Box Bowl on December 30th, California, will be taking on Illinois. Illinois, I believe they had a better year than I expected. I know I'm going on a lot about these Big Ten teams, but I'm a Michigan fan, and I love the Big Ten. And I know the most about them. So excuse me if you're not happy with me not talking about any of the other teams. I just don't know much about them, or I know enough about them to give a good prediction. But some of these I'm literally guessing because I have no idea who they are, especially like the early games like Charlotte and Buffalo. I don't know anything about those teams. I'm literally giving a prediction, just guessing because who cares? But Illinois and California on December 30th in the Red Box Bowl. Illinois had a better year than I thought. I guess most people thought they were going to have. They still didn't have a great year by any means, for just like a team that in the Big Ten, it's not a great year. 6-6 won't get you anywhere besides just some meaningless bowl game. But they face what is their good wins? I guess you could say they had Wisconsin. That's a win. That was when they had. That was their only prominent like big time win that they had. Was that 1 point win against Wisconsin earlier in the year. And I believe they were number 6 at the time, and now Wisconsin's in the Rose Bowl. Illinois beat Wisconsin. They almost beat Michigan at one point. They beat Michigan State. I can't really think of any other like big wins that they had besides the two, or besides the Wisconsin game. But anyway, California is a heavy favorite here, and let me take a look here. What is their wins? UCLA, Stanford. They lost to USC, Washington State. Lost to Utah. Illinois. They beat Northwestern. When they lost by 9 to Iowa. Michigan State, Rutgers, Purdue. Not really prominent wins there, besides maybe the Michigan State game. I'm going to go with Illinois in this one because they've kept it close with better teams and they beat Wisconsin. So I got Illinois winning here in the Red Box Bowl. In the Serve Pro First Responder Bowl, Western Kentucky versus Western Michigan. Just going to give a quick one here. I can never rely on a Michigan team to win, fully all the time. So I'm going to go with Western Kentucky. In the Franklin American Mortgage Music City Bowl. These are ridiculously long names. Mississippi State and Louisville. I've got Mississippi State winning, I guess, fairly big. In the Capital One Orange Bowl, number 9 Florida versus number 24 Virginia. Virginia's in this game because they made it to the ACC championship game. Ultimately got destroyed by Clemson, which was expected. But that is pretty much why they're in this game. Otherwise, I believe Virginia Tech would probably be in it. I'm going to go with Florida winning here in a... You know what? No. I'm not going with Florida. That would just be obvious. I'm going to go with
I'm going to go with Virginia here. I believe the underdog will win, even though Florida is a heavy 14-point favorite. I'm going to go with Virginia, and I'm probably going to be wrong, but that's what I'm going with. In the Belk Bowl, finally a shorter name, Virginia Tech in Kentucky. Virginia Tech almost beat Notre Dame earlier in the year. That's all I know about them. Oh, they lost to Virginia uh, to make it to the ACC championship game, which wouldn't have mattered anyway. They would have ultimately lost to Clemson anyway, but uh, they're here in the Belk Bowl against Kentucky. I don't know anything about Kentucky, but they are the favorite in this one, despite being, losing one game more than Virginia Tech did. And I'm gonna go with Virginia Tech in this one. In the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. I'm really glad my team's not in a bowl game called Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Um, Florida State. This is on December 31st, by the way. Florida State versus Arizona State. Arizona State's always one of those teams that usually beats good teams and can just, even though they're not always a great team, they can always surprise you with how dangerous they can be. Florida State is just worthless. They haven't been anything since like 2016 or something. I'm going with Arizona State winning the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. In the AutoZone Liberty Bowl, number 23 Navy versus Kansas State. Navy, who have they beaten? Pretty much nobody. They got crushed by Notre Dame, is all I know about Navy, and the Navy Army game Army Navy game just got done and over with as I'm recording this, and Navy won 35-7. So there's another prediction I was right on. Kansas State, don't know anything about them other than the fact that they beat Oklahoma earlier in the year. And when you beat Oklahoma, that's impressive. But when you're Navy and you lose to Notre Dame by as much as you do, but you got Kansas State who beat Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a much better team over Notre Dame, that's for sure. I got Kansas State winning this one. In the Nova Home Loans Arizona Bowl, Wyoming versus Georgia State. Wyoming is favored in the matchup predictor. They also favored in the spread. So just based off of that, I'm gonna go with Wyoming winning here. Why? Oh, okay. I don't know if I'm missing something. Why is Texas in this game against Utah? In the Valerio Alamo Bowl. Why are they in this game? I just want to know. Like Utah, let's just look. Texas. I mean, I guess Utah really hasn't had any like prominent wins. But who's Texas beaten? I mean, this will probably be closer than I think. I'm just really confused because you see number 11, 11-2 versus unranked 7-5. You're just like, what? It really doesn't make any sense. But maybe this is a kind of a Notre Dame Iowa State situation where, but the only difference is I don't get this one. The Notre Dame Iowa State game makes sense to me, but this really doesn't. Utah was in the playoff race for a little bit. Texas has never been in the playoff race. They weren't even close to talked about. I got Utah winning here, and even though Utah is only a 7.5 point favorite, which is weird, but I've got Utah winning here. We've got some decent games on January 1st. The start of New Year's 6 games. In the Outback Bowl, number 18 Minnesota 10-2 against number 12 Auburn 9-3. Auburn, who have they beaten? They've beaten Alabama. I know that much. Let's see here. Minnesota, who have they beaten? They beat Penn State when they were number 4. Auburn beat Alabama when they were 5. So, yeah, this is a pretty good game here. Here's the thing. Yes, I'm a Big Ten homer. Minnesota to me is overrated. Um, they're not anywhere near as good as people say they are, or as their record shows. I'm not trying to discredit anything they've done this year, and give PJ Fleck credit. They are a lot better than they were, especially last year. But to me, Minnesota is like Northwestern of last year. Um, Although I don't believe that they're going to end their year two. They're going to go to the Big Ten championship, finish 10-2. Um, like Northwestern did. I don't think it's going to be like when Northwestern last year finished 10-2, went to the Big Ten championship, and ultimately lost to Ohio State. But then they're going to go down the next year and go 2-10. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen to Minnesota at all. I'm saying they're going to have a step down next year. They're not going to go 10-2, and they're not going to be talked about in the Big Ten championship. They're just not. Um, Wisconsin will probably be up there again when it comes to Big Ten talks. I think Nebraska's getting there. Although I said that last year or before the start of the 2019 season, I said Nebraska was going to get there at some point, or they're going to get closer, and they ultimately didn't. But Nebraska, they're getting better. Iowa is always in the picture. Can't forget about Iowa. Northwestern will probably improve. The West, the Big Ten West ultimately needs to get better. Like it's all about the East right now, or at least really, actually, it's just all about Ohio State. I mean, it hasn't been anybody else since what was it, the 2016 season or whatever. No one's been talked about in the Big Ten championship race besides Ohio State since 2016, or I believe Penn State won it. And even then, it was still an East team. When was the last time a West team won the Big Ten championship? I can't even remember. Auburn, much better than you know than I think their record shows. I think they could be a top 10 team, maybe towards the top, like number 8, number 9, something like that. I think they're a better team than Minnesota, and I'm not saying they're going to just destroy Minnesota. I'm not saying that at all, but I don't believe that Auburn is going to, or I don't believe Minnesota is going to win this game. And even if they do, it'll be by a very close margin. Minnesota had some very close wins earlier in the year against a not great team, South Dakota State, and they only won by like 7 or something like that. Auburn, they beat Alabama, scored a lot of points. If you beat Alabama, that's a prominent win. That's a good win, um, and that's something to brag about. Um, Even though they're having a step down this year, they're still very talented. Auburn's going to win this game probably by a couple of scores. In the VRBO Citrus Bowl, my Michigan Wolverines, 9-3 at 14th ranked, will be going up against Alabama, number 13th and 10-2. Alabama's only 2 losses came to ranked teams in LSU and who else did they lose? Auburn. Literally just talking about it. Michigan. I believe Michigan is better than what the record shows. Even you guys are gonna say, of course you think that, you're a Michigan fan. I do believe the Penn State game was definitely winnable. I believe we could be 10-3 or 10-2 right now. I'm not, and I'm not gonna say anything on the Wisconsin or Ohio State games. Very obviously, and I think if we played Wisconsin now, we would have it would be a closer game. I still don't think we would win. Ohio State, forget about that. That is just how it is. 56-27 is how it's going to be every time we play them. Um, but yeah, what is Michigan's biggest win? Notre Dame, probably, uh, which is a top 15 team. That people would say that's a good win. Alabama, what's their biggest win? Texas A&M. I think most people would agree their best win is Texas A&M, an unranked Texas A&M, but much better. But Texas A&M is definitely better than what their record and rankings show. Um, who do I have winning this one? Um, I have Alabama winning because I'm sure they're angry and they want to keep showing that they can win big games. And this would be their only, I believe, their only, if they win this game, it'll be their only ranked win of the season. Michigan, the only reason I'm not going, another reason I'm not going with Michigan is because they don't win their bowl games for whatever reason. I don't believe that they win their bowl games very often. Ever since I became a fan or started watching Michigan football, most years we don't win it. Um, and I don't think like some people say it's going to be a blowout, and then watch it be a blowout and people come blast me. But I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I don't. I think it'll be like a 40 something, 30 something game because for one, there's no way that a Don Brown defense is going to be able to stop Alabama's offense. I don't think so. But I really don't think with a Michigan offense that has improved as much as it has, um, I think that they'll be able to score a lot of points against an Alabama defense, which is already not very good to begin with. But will probably have a few players not playing in the game. That's not to say Michigan won't have players that won't be playing either, but Michigan's offense this year is one of the best I've seen in a long time, at least in the last few games, even against Ohio State, which is the number one defense. I was pretty happy for the most part with their performance, um, even though yes, it was only 27 points. But when you're going up against Ohio State, and we scored the most amount of points against Ohio State than any team this year did. I think the only team that got anywhere close was like Rutgers, but they put in their fourth string guys. Ohio State did like in the second quarter of that game. Um, so I don't really count that. But yeah, I think that this will be a high scoring game. I think it'll be an exciting offensive game, but I think it'll be a lot like the Ohio State game, and Alabama's offense will just overpower us. They will show that they're still a more talented team and that they can win the game, even though we'll probably make it interesting. I still think that they're the better team. And I say that they win by 10. I'm going to go with that. At least, at the very least, they'll win by 10. So that's my prediction on that. Alabama wins. Another game that could be really good is the Rose Bowl. Oregon and Wisconsin. I believe these two teams played in the Rose Bowl a few years ago. Um, so this is a rematch. Number 6, Oregon, which is a team that had playoff aspirations, lost the game at the wrong time, when they really couldn't afford to. Wisconsin was really the same way. They couldn't afford the losses that they had. The Illinois loss really hurt them. They could probably be forgiven for losing to Ohio State, at least not by as much as they did, but I believe that they would be touted as a more talented or a better team if they didn't have that Illinois loss on their record, and they made the game a little bit more like the Big Ten championship against Ohio State. I think if their only losses were two close losses to Ohio State, I think their only two, if their only two losses were against were close losses to Ohio State, they would be probably higher ranked, and they would be number 5 or whatever. Uh, Oregon, both teams suffered losses at the wrong time, and this is a good bowl game for them. The only bowl game that's just below uh, the Big Ten championship or the Big Ten championship, the playoffs. The only game that's right below that. Um, the Rose Bowl is the game you make it to when you just miss the playoffs, in which both of these teams did, and they're suffering from it. Wisconsin, their 2 of their 3 losses were to Ohio State. The other loss was a game they shouldn't have lost, in against Illinois by 1 point. That game really hurt them. But despite all of that, despite losing to Illinois by 1, and despite losing to Ohio State twice, one of them which was a dominant a blowout loss, to Ohio State. They are still in the Rose Bowl against Oregon, which was a team that had playoff aspirations. Ended up losing a game at the wrong time, and even after the fact that they destroyed Utah in the Pac-12 championship, still was not enough to put them in the playoffs because Oklahoma ended up winning the Big 12 championship game against Baylor, and I believe Baylor was the team that beat Oregon, if I'm not mistaken. So, no, I'm probably wrong on that. But who do I have winning this game? It's really hard to say for me. Um, both teams are very good. I don't know if Jonathan Taylor will play in this game. I think if he does, Wisconsin has a lot better chance. But for some reason, I believe he won't play unless he's already announced that he's not going to, which I have no idea if he has or not. Um, but if he does play, I think they have a better chance. But for some reason, I don't think that he will. So I'm going with Oregon in this one in a very close 3-6 point win. Along with the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl is another bowl game that teams make when they just barely miss the playoffs. Georgia got destroyed by LSU in the SEC championship game, in losing their only shot at making the playoffs. Baylor, another team that was kind of suffer a loss at the wrong time, even though the fact that they um, uh, who did they play last, man? I can't even think right now. I've been going on forever. They lost to LSU. No, that was Georgia. They lost in a close one to Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game and ended up missing the playoffs. If Baylor would have basically if Baylor would have won that game, they're in the playoffs. If Georgia would have won their game, they're also in the playoffs. Here's the thing though, Oklahoma nowhere near as good as LSU. It'll be a dominant game for LSU, and I just basically gave you my prediction for that game. But Baylor, uh, yeah, Baylor, Georgia, no clue who I have winning this game. Georgia can win a game just based off of their defense, unless you're playing LSU. Um, then they can't win. But Georgia, they can win any game besides LSU with their defense. Offense, on the other hand, can't do anything. They're terrible. They're pitiful. They can't score over 20 points a game unless they're playing a nobody. Um, so I don't know who I have winning this game. It's going to be close, but for some reason, I've got Baylor winning it. They probably won't win it, but I'm going to go with Baylor in the Sugar Bowl. In the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, Indiana versus Tennessee. Let's get through these quicker now. I've got Indiana winning this game because I believe that they're a lot better than people think they are, or than what they're not really what the record shows. They've had a very good year this year, but Tennessee hasn't Tennessee been pretty much worthless all year. Who have they beaten? Indiana, they barely beat Purdue. I don't think that matters though. They made it close with Penn State. Tennessee, not a single ranked win on all of these here. But Indiana, you know what? I'm going with Indiana on this one, by like 1 point. In the Ticket Smarter Birmingham Bowl, Boston College, 6-6, unranked, against number 21 Cincinnati, who's 10-3. Two of their losses for Cincinnati came against Memphis in the last two games, I believe. Yeah, if I go to Cincinnati, their last two wins or losses were against Cincinnati, or I'm sorry, Memphis. I can't even speak. This video so long. Every other game they've won except for one other. I don't know what it was. Cincinnati's a heavy favorite here, and it makes sense. I'm going with Cincinnati. Ohio versus Nevada in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. I've got Ohio winning. in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Tulane versus wait, who's this team? Southern Miss. Sorry, excuse me. I've got Tulane winning this one. And Louisiana versus Miami of Ohio. I've got Louisiana winning here. Big. Finally, the last two games here in the CFP, college football playoff semifinals. Number 1 LSU versus number 4 Oklahoma. I've got LSU winning here, man. I got LSU winning big. I think Oklahoma was just fortunate that they made it in the first place. I don't think that they can win this game. It's going to be just like last year, and they're not going to come anywhere close. LSU wins big. And the other semifinal game, the game which I really believe could be a national championship game, the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, number 3 Clemson versus number 2 Ohio State. This is going to be a really, really good game. And actually, Ohio State is favored in the matchup predictor, but when you look at the spread, Clemson is a 2-point favorite. So that is actually really good when you look at it. Look at these stats, man. Throughout just the entire year, Trevor Lawrence had just over 100 incompletions all year. Justin Fields had exactly 100 incompletions all year. It's really impressive. It's really impressive. Both very good quarterbacks, both very good running backs, and just both teams that have offenses that are crazy good. Both defenses are crazy good. It's gonna be probably the most exciting game, I think. And it's very hard to predict who I think can win this game. I've been saying all year pretty much, or I said it at the beginning of the year, no one's going to beat Ohio State. I've been saying this all year. No one's going to beat them. They're going to go, I said it in their prediction video, in my Ohio State prediction video, they're going to go undefeated 12-0, and that's exactly what happened. Ohio State, Clemson, people will say Clemson is not favored by the matchup predictor because they haven't played anybody this year. But listen, it's really hard to go 13-0, and people said that last year, and what happened? They destroyed Alabama in the national title game. They've won 20-plus games in a row. They've won almost, I believe, 27 games in a row, if not more than that. No, they've won 27 games in a row, Clemson has. And Ohio State hasn't lost a game since Purdue last year. And that really, just really bad loss they had. Ohio State is much better than last year. Clemson, probably just as good. So it's really hard to say, but every win that these two teams have been dominant. Clemson looked kind of meh at the beginning of the season. Trevor Lawrence was not doing too good, but he definitely turned that around because now he's got 34 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. And Ohio State's Justin Fields, 40 touchdowns, 1 interception, and arguably a much harder conference. So I would say Justin Fields, and he's in the Heisman run. So just based off of that, Justin Fields, I believe, is a better quarterback than Trevor Lawrence. Both are very good, but Justin Fields is better in my eyes. I think this game is ultimately going to come down to which defense can step up big. Ohio State's defense both teams' defenses are just nuts good, just crazy good. But just because I believe Ohio State's defense is better, don't mind the horn in the background, by the way, guys. Just because I believe Ohio State's defense is better and their offense is a little more explosive, I've got Ohio State winning here in a very good, high scoring, maybe. I don't even know. It'll be good no matter what. Very good game here. But I've got Ohio State winning very close. So there it is, guys. All of the playoff games predicted. I have the national championship being LSU and Ohio State. And if that ends up happening, well, I mean, no matter what happens, I will make a video on the national championship right before it actually happens. It should be an excellent game, no matter who it is in the game. Um, so we'll see what happens then. This video has been really long, and yeah, you probably didn't even make it this far, but if you did, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.